Welcome to AI for Good, the leading, action-oriented, global and inclusive United Nations platform on AI. Organized by the International Telecommunication Union, the United Nations Agency for Digital Technologies, in partnership with 50+ UN sister organizations and co-convened with Switzerland. The goal of AI for Good is to unlock AI's potential to serve humanity. In today's AI for Good event, we are counting on you to use the live video wall feature to ask questions and post comments to help create an engaging discussion. We encourage you to stay until the end to chat, connect, ask questions, and network with our distinguished facilitators and world-class AI experts in the neural network. It is now time to kick off the session and welcome our first speaker. The floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us for today's AI for Food webinar, part of the AI for Good Discovery series. My name is Sebastian Bosse from Frauen for HHI, and it's my pleasure to guide you through today's session. Around the world, food systems are facing immense pressure from climate change to resource constraints, and AI has the potential to help transforming how we produce, distribute, and consume food. Today, we will explore how data, standards, and innovation can make that transformation exclusive, sustainable, and scalable. A few quick housekeeping points before we begin. This session will run about 1 hour and is being recorded. Please share your questions in the Q&A box at any time. And we will have a live discussion followed by an audience Q&A near the end. To open today's session, I am delighted to invite Dr. Hyoung Jun Kim, Chair of ITU-T Study Group 20, to share his opening remarks. Hyoung, the floor is yours.
Dear attendees, it's a pleasure to join you today for this AI for Food webinar, marking World Food Day. I'm delighted to share a few insights on how emerging technologies can help transform agriculture. The agriculture domain faces growing challenges, including climate change, resource scarcity, the soil degradation, and increasing demand for food. Yet these challenges come at the moment of extraordinary technological opportunity. Artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, immersive technologies, and robotics allow us to sense, understand, and respond to the needs of agricultural ecosystem in the real time. Through IoT sensors, we can monitor soil moisture and temperature and crop health continuously. AI systems can process this data instantly to detect patterns, focus peak outbreaks, and recommend the precise interventions. Together, these technologies enable farmers to make the smart decision using water, fertilizers, and energy more efficiently, improving yields and reducing waste. Coupling AI and IoT also open the door to automation. The result is greater productivity, and sustainability, and trust. However, for this solution to scale, we need interoperability. Without standards, agricultural system remains fragmented and technology adoption slows down. ITU serves a dual role in the United Nations system. It is the UN specialized agency for digital technologies and also an international standard development organizations. To strengthen the foundation for integrating AI and IoT in agriculture within the standardization landscape, ITU Study Group 20 focusing on IoT, digital twin, and smart sustainable cities and communities. established the ITO Power Focus Group on AI and IoT for digital agriculture in October 2021. The focus group successfully concluded its work in June 2024, delivering key outputs, including a comprehensive glossary, a standardization roadmap, a framework for data acquisition and modeling, and guidance on ethical and legal considerations, as well as the best practice to support the responsible and effective application of AI and IoT in this field. Just a month ago, ITUT Study Group training established a new question on digital agriculture from smart farm and production to safe and secure consumption. This work will guide the development of international standards that connect IoT, data, digital twin, and AI across the agricultural value chain. ITU also collaborates on the global initiative on AI for food system with WFP, FAO, and IFAD, which explores digital technology integration, knowledge sharing, the synergistic partnerships, and proof of concept for improving efficiency of food chains and enhancing global food security. On this World Food Day, let's remember that technology is only as powerful as the purpose is served. Emerging technologies like AI must be applied not just to increase the productivity, but to increase equitable and resilient food system. Through collaboration and international standards, we can turn this vision into reality. Together, let's harness the power of AI for food to nourish people, protect the planet, and build a future where no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hyoung, for setting the stage and reminding us how international collaboration and standards play a crucial role in ensuring that AI technologies can scale responsibly, including in agriculture. Now let's move to our keynote speech. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Magan Naidoo, Chief Data Officer at the World Food Programme. Magan leads WFP's global data and transformation efforts using AI and analytics to strengthen humanitarian and food security responses across the globe. Today, he will share insights on how AI and data-driven systems can help us achieve food security and resilience at scale. Without further ado, Magan, over to you.
Thank you, Sebastian, for that warm welcome. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. It is a great honor to join you at this important AI for Food session under the AI for Good Discovery series. I would like to begin by expressing my appreciation to the International Telecommunication Union and the AI for Good for convening this dialogue on one of the most urgent challenges of our time, ensuring that everyone, everywhere has access to safe, nutritious, and sustainable food. As mentioned, my name is Magan Naidoo, and I serve as the Chief Data Officer at the United Nations World Food Programme. Every day at the World Food Programme, we see how data and digital innovation can transform how we understand hunger, anticipate risks, and deliver food assistance more efficiently and equitably. However, we also see the gaps in data, in connectivity, and in the ethical and governance frameworks needed to ensure technology serves the people who need it the most. We meet at a time when global food systems are under immense strain. Climate change, conflict, population pressures, and rising inequality are converging to threaten food security on an unprecedented scale. Extreme weather events are disrupting crops, supply chains remain fragile, and millions face hunger and malnutrition in both rural and urban settings. Against this backdrop, innovation is not optional, but imperative. Artificial intelligence can be a catalyst for change, helping us predict droughts, optimize crop yields, reduce waste, and strengthen early warning systems. Yet, as powerful as these tools are, they can only deliver their promise if they are grounded in trust, transparency, and inclusion. This is why standards and shared frameworks are so essential. Standards ensure that innovation scales safely, fairly, and efficiently. They allow data from diverse sources, from satellite sensors, from farmers to food markets. When data is interoperable, we can build more accurate forecasting models, coordinate responses faster, and share insights more openly. In the food sector, interoperability is the bridge between local innovation and global resilience. However, standards are not just about technology, they are also about trust. Today's consumers, policymakers, and communities want to know where their food comes from, how it is produced, and whether it respects people and the planet. AI systems that process this information must be transparent and explainable. Standards for data governance, accountability, and ethical use can help ensure that technology strengthens and not erodes public trust in food systems. Equally important is fairness. Too often, smallholder farmers who produce a large share of the world's food risk being left behind in the digital revolution. Algorithms trained on limited or biased data can exclude or disadvantage the very people AI is meant to help. We must therefore design and deploy AI that is inclusive, participatory, and human-centered. International standards can guide us in embedding equity, privacy, and non-discrimination into every stage of AI development. At the World Food Programme, we are applying data and AI to improve food security in some of the world's most challenging environments. For example, we use machine learning to anticipate food shortages by analyzing weather, price, and mobility data. We use AI-powered imagery to assess the impact of droughts and floods in real time. We're exploring predictive analytics to optimize humanitarian logistics and supply chains. These initiatives have shown us the potential of AI. However, they have also taught us that scaling impact requires shared standards, open collaboration, and ethical governance. We have learned that no technology can succeed without partnerships between governments, the private sector, academia, and local communities. And we have also learned that pilots only become sustainable solutions when they're built on common data models, open frameworks, and strong institutional support. As we look ahead, I see three areas where we must focus our collective efforts. First, we must co-create global standards for AI in food system standards that define how data is shared, how models are validated, and how fairness and accountability are maintained. Second, we must invest in inclusive capacity, ensuring that all regions, especially developing countries, have the infrastructure, skills, and governance systems to adopt and adapt these technologies. And third, we must foster robust mechanisms of transparency and oversight, ensuring that innovation remains aligned with public good and human dignity. This is precisely why AI for Food Systems initiative, led jointly by the ITU, the World Food Programme, FAO, and IFAD, was launched to harness the power of AI responsibly and collaboratively to make our global food systems more efficient, resilient, and inclusive. In closing, I would like to say that AI will not solve hunger on its own. AI, guided by interoperable standards, shared principles, and strong partnerships, can empower farmers, policymakers, humanitarian workers, and communities to build a more resilient and equitable food system for all. I look forward to the discussion and the collaboration ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Magan, for that powerful keynote. A great reminder of how combining innovation and collaboration can drive meaningful impact in global food systems. It is also enlightening to hear of the World Food Programme's work in this domain. We will now move on into our panel discussion where we will hear from 3 experts bringing complementary perspectives from agricultural development, research, and innovation ecosystems. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. Brenda Mulele Gunde, Global Lead for ICT4D at IFAD, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, focusing on digital inclusion and innovation for smallholder farmers. Simon Winter, Vice President for Reimagining Humanitarian Nutrition Security at the Rockefeller Foundation, and Dr. Belkhala Praveen Rao, Vice Chancellor of Kaveri University in Telangana, India. Welcome, everyone. It is a great honor to have you here with us. Brenda, let's start with you. Could you provide us an insight into how IFAD has been leveraging AI?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sebastian, and good afternoon, good morning, and evening, depending on where you're joining from. It's quite interesting, I think, to hear both from the opening remarks and also the keynote in terms of how AI is, one, currently shaping the way we see agri-food systems, but also in terms of the future opportunities. And for IFAD, just as most of the world, we are realizing that AI is no longer about the distant or futuristic idea. I think by the time we're starting to conceptualize elements of AI and the precedent that it has taken over time, I think it's moving at quite a fast rate. And for us, it still remains that we need to look at AI as a practical enabler for inclusive, data-driven, as well as supporting climate and rural transformation. So we have been thinking and pushing more of an ambitious strategy towards AI, ensuring that it reaches the first mile, which reaches smallholder farmers. Some of the ways that we're looking at this is that we have been discussing with our executive board in terms of focusing on ecosystems approach to ensure that AI is much more scalable and sustainable. That is looking from data governance all the way to thinking about the connectivity, the infrastructure. How do we ensure that AI use cases become shared public goods, and all the elements that go with it. Now, imagining that we are looking at potential combining extension data, you've got AI models, satellite imagery, and all this information is meant to reach a smallholder farmer, for example, in northern Nigeria, a woman who is using a feature phone, and that application, or she has an application maybe for the smartphone that's supposed to tell her critical questions that most smallholder farmers ask. What do I plant? When do I plant it? Where do I get the seed? How much will I sell this for? Where do I sell? So all those questions that the farmer are grappling with all this time. And we are at the back utilizing artificial intelligence and all these other smart technologies. So this is actually what inclusive ecosystem approach and intelligence looks like. On the other side, we're also looking at how do we bring in data foundations and interoperability? It's good that Megan was talking about interoperability standards and everything else. These are the essential building blocks for integrated AI for rural transformation. So we have been working on a new project that has just been approved for an initiative on what we're calling Open Agri Connect that is going to start piloting in Rwanda and Nigeria on a data digital public infrastructure, which is going to support utilizing digital farmer registries as a critical layer for supporting, verifying data on farmers, production systems, etc., with the intent that we can now integrate AI models for yield forecasting, risk profiling, and market linkages. At the same time, we're also looking at working in Tanzania. We have a project under United Nations SDG Fund that is supporting the ministry working on a data interoperability and data governance. So all these elements, I think when you put them together, it's actually a more strategic position towards how we utilize AI so that we're not just jumping to the bandwagon because it's something that is nice and something that everybody else is doing, but that we have a more strategic a vision in terms of how we're going to approach AI, and at the end of the day, it can support smallholder farmers. Thanks, and over.
Thank you very much, Brenda. So I would like to build on what you just said with the next question that I would like to give to you, Simon. So Brenda was touching upon the issue or the topic or the necessity of digital public infrastructure. So from your perspective, so what is the role of digital public infrastructure when it comes to basically humanitarian nutrition security?
Greetings, everybody, and honoring World Food Day today. This is a very timely conversation. I am leading a very new initiative at Rockefeller Foundation. We just launched it at Hunger Week less than a month ago. And the intention is to address the downturn in the availability of public funds, especially ODA, but also other forms of public support for development assistance and humanitarian assistance, by looking at how to have data systems help to improve efficiencies and improve effectiveness at the nexus of where crises happen and humanitarian support gets triggered, and long-term food and nutrition security and climate adaptation development. And we believe that there is the potential now, building on what previous speakers have said about the accuracy of satellite data. Planet's new technologies are now able to give 1 square meter resolution of definition on the ground, and combining satellite data with terrestrial sensors, media data, survey data that can easily be administered at extremely low cost now using cell phone networks, for example, and so on, and provide better solutions at that nexus so that we can anticipate both the next crisis further in advance, because the longer the lead time we have with accurate predictions as to where the next crisis is, the more we can take anticipatory action in advance of those crises, which has been much talked about and worked on for quite some years, but with relatively few resources behind it. And we can build the long-term infrastructure, services, business opportunities that will be part of resilience building, based on observations that many of these crises are actually becoming increasingly repetitive and increasingly severe, especially those related to weather and other environmental elements. So then the question that you're asking about digital public infrastructure comes in, because clearly a lot of that data is sitting in various sources. Some is within the public domain, some not. Some is, Planet is a private company, for example. So the question is, what parts of that data should then be in the public domain for all users who want to act on that data, to be able to use it for both the humanitarian purposes and then the longer term resilience building purposes. And the more we have more accurate data, both in terms of the timing of onset of crises and the repetitive cycling, as well as the geographic specificity of those crises, the more we can then build financial instruments, whether that's resilience bonds or whether it's insurance products and so on top of that public data, that will enable then financial solutions to be underpinning much of the work that's required, not necessarily having to be funded entirely by the public sector, which now has much less funding available. So the details of exactly which bits of digital public infrastructure, digital IDs, for example, field boundaries, other forms of data around infrastructure, and so on, which parts of those then belong on the public sector side versus which in the domain of, for example, the businesses themselves or the farmers themselves, and need to be safeguarded for data protection and data privacy, purposes, that needs to be worked out, I believe, on a country-specific basis, because each country has somewhat different regulations and requirements around this. But I think the principles that Magan articulated in his remarks will apply to this idea of, then how do you separate out which parts of those data systems, should sit in the DPI side versus, which part should then be in the private sector domain, and that, as I say, has to be worked out sort of case by case. In my initiative, we're looking both right now at what are all the various forms of data supply. So where is this data coming from? Who's processing it? Who's providing insights and recommendations and syntheses of this data? And then we're about to launch an exercise to look at the users. What do local policymakers want that data for? What does the local private sector want that data for? What do farmers want that data for, as they're looking to build more resilience into their local food systems in the future? I'll pause there for now, Sebastian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. So, Dr. Rao, Praveen, so how would you, with the experience that you have with the project you're doing in Telangana, so what is your perspective on, from the research front, on how AI and data-driven tools can support better decision-making, especially in the area of smallholder farming? And what sort of role would digital public infrastructure play there in providing these services to the smallholder farmers?
Thank you, Sebastian. I'm audible. Okay. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Simon, for a wonderful, context that has been set in. We actually, for the last 4 or 5 years, I will share some practical learnings we had when we were working with regards to AI applications in small and marginal holding farmers' fields. We have done even one project in collaboration with the World Economic Forum and several startups. For example, when we started looking at this AI, initially we developed a framework for the Telangana state, how AI applications have to be looked at in the small and marginal farmers fields, working about in collaboration with about 65 startups, and as well as policymakers and several other stakeholders like farmers, producer organizations, academia, and all those. And interestingly, for instance, we, after developing the framework, we have implemented a pilot project in Telangana, what we call it as a Sagu Bagu project. That means AI for good, AI for agriculture innovation. That's what, and it was, it had an interesting results, interesting learnings. For example, we have dealt with about 7,000 chili farmers, small holding farmers. After just one season, we noticed that farmers reported a 21% improvement in yields, 11% increase in unit prices of their produce that has been commanded, and 9% reduction in inputs, particularly fertilizers and pesticides. Consequently, normally the average farmer's income in India is about, per annum is about $1,500. And we noticed that in this project, within one season per acre, about $800 have been as a profit that have been accrued. But interestingly, we had several learnings through this project. First thing what we noticed is understanding stakeholders' AI aspirations is one of the key things what we have noticed. For example, from different stakeholders' point of view, if we take from startups and tech industry, farmers prefer, for example, YouTube over Google. That means with limited literacy, farmers prefer visual and voice-based tech, simple, intuitive AI interfaces, and then they have a fear of missing out, holds farmers back. Traditional practices and peer influence cause hesitation in AI applications. That is another learning what we have noticed. Quality gaps hinder global market access. This is another say component which we have. Cutting out middlemen isn't always better. That is what we have noticed. Say when connecting to the markets, middlemen add value through grading and pricing, but AI can help farmers negotiate smarter without losing that value. Farmers produce and organizations have been underused for due to lack of AI awareness. That is one we noticed. Farmers need tailored advice, not internet clutter. So they need very tailored advice. That is what we have noticed.
Vichala, your mic is on mute.
Yeah, macro crop planning models were the one component which we have identified, wherein we noticed that varietal advisories, extension planning, credit planning, policy incentive planning, inputs planning, sowing windows are some of the important things. Similarly, smart farming, we noticed mechanization of farms, smart micro irrigation, pest prediction, hyperlocal weather advisories. Then with regards to farm gate to fork, we noticed that quality and traceability, fintech, warehousing supply, cold chain are some of the issues which I think help in improving the efficiency in farmers, this one. Then three important learnings what we noticed when AI use cases were implemented. Use cases need to be integrated. That means farmers prefer bundled solutions rather than individual, say what you call use cases. That is one thing. Then cross-cutting foundational elements are critical. That has been one of the learnings what we have noticed. Then the third one is multi-stakeholder collaboration is the key. Because we noticed that it is this AI applications is a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder technology. So these sectorial organizations coming together play a very important role in India. And we noticed that there is one more point with regards to government is building a supportive legal and tech environment with initiatives like AI procurement and financial incentives. This has been one of the important things what we noticed. Then agriculture, digital infrastructure and data sharing policies. So government has already this year has earmarked a huge budget for this to develop farmer registries in all the 29 states. Then AI sandboxes for testing and innovation. This is another important thing which we notice. Launching pilot projects to build evidence and trust was one of the important thing. Then running awareness campaigns to empower farmers and set up consumer forums for grievances. This has been another important. Then when we come to startups and AI industry, co-developing AI strategies, standards, and risk frameworks with the government. This is one of the important learning we have. Build AI products for both domestic and global markets. This is another one. Collaborate with AI sandboxes for co-innovation and testing. Then strengthen the AI ecosystem by integrating with platforms like ONDC, Agri-Data Exchanges, and AgriStack, which have been already established in the country, has helped the farmers. Then with regards to academia and research, focusing on applied research, ethics, governance, and interoperability issues have been important. Mentoring startups and co-innovating using academic expertise. Support validation of AI solutions for both tech and domain from domain angles, training talent for ethical and innovative AI, that is responsible AI deployment, co-create AI evaluation frameworks and impact assessment methods have been. So these are some of the things which we have learned. So we have been, till now we have developed AI framework. What are the use cases that are important, keeping in view the local challenges, and as well as the roles that have to be played by different stakeholders. So that clarity has come. Now we are working on several use cases with regards to robotics application in few crops. We are working on drone up mapping and action-oriented activities. We are working on traceability in seed value chain. So these are some of the use cases that are in place. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thanks so much. I'm sorry, I'm facing some technical issues here, but we will make it. Thank you so much for these insights, and also for linking the smallholder farms. Those were mentioned by Brenda previously as well, to the necessities of system design and integration of different stakeholders. We have one question from the chat that the question is if such project could be set up in Uganda, and if so, how would this be done? And I guess this is a question that's super relevant, and it could be generalized as well. So, and I guess mostly it goes to Brenda and to Simon. So, what are the basic necessity and decision criterions that you would see at the current stage of development, of implementation, of research, of standardization, of innovation, all these different aspects, when it comes to deciding of where to put pilots? Brenda, can we start with you? And then we just put the same question on Simon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sebastian. Thanks for the question that has been asked. I think when you're looking at the approach, one thing that we need to know is that there's no one size fits all, right? As much as when we put up standards and frameworks, these are guiding principles towards implementation. When we look at every country implementation, some of this will actually, come out in different aspects, but still there are some guiding principles that we need to look at it. From the policy perspective, most of the countries have now been looking at their own national AI frameworks that are anchored alongside their national development frameworks. And then through also others, they have looked at a more holistic approach towards a more digital agriculture approach or digital agriculture strategy, and then integrating the AI aspects into it. But some of the things that really make up these frameworks is understanding of the whole issues on standards and interoperability, as we were talking about, in considering that if you look at systems and in most countries, that there is data silos in most ministries. You have Ministry of Agriculture that looks at, for example, farmer data, extension. They have a Department of Extension. They also sometimes have a department that looks at, provision of other services, mechanization, etc. And then you have Ministry of Statistics that is looking at, sensor data, national IDs. And then you have Ministry of ICT that is looking at architecture, connectivity, etc. So bringing all this, conversation together in a more national framework is important, because that way then it's easier to define what are going to be some of these national standards and interoperability frameworks that are going to guide, for example, how do systems speak to one another? What are some of the commonalities in terms of data classification and data integration? How are we going to bring in data from different perspectives? What are we going to give up when looking at the different business processes within the ministries? How are we going to remove redundancies? So all these issues about standards and interoperability have to be looked at it. The other aspect is also on data governance, in terms of how do you define data ownership? Who owns what data, and what data is, how are we going to also ensure that the data on farmers, there is a constant mechanism from a protection perspective, so that we're not just protecting the data, but we're also making it available for other partners and stakeholders to use it. The data sharing and the data quality. And then we also have to consider the issues about the policy coherence between the digital, data, agriculture, and other sectors, for example, financial sector and other partners. So government has to play that convening role in bringing all the stakeholders on the same table. Once that has been defined, is now looking at the next step. The next step is how we're going to build in the use cases that are going to utilize this data. Now, so there are several options that we need to look at it. If we look considerably, most of the solutions currently are being implemented by the private sector, which is agri-techs and fintechs and other players. Although the development sector is also working in the space, but when you're looking at sustainability, it's mostly the private sector. So with private sector, we are asking the issues about data consent. We're also looking at, issues about incentives. What incentive are we going to bring to the private sector for them to be able to contribute their data into the National Farmer Registry, for example? And then on the other side, if they utilize that data, what is the incentive also to government to provide that data? So all these conversations also have to be done at that practical level, at use case level. And then on the other side, we also need to ensure that there is an oversight mechanism of that data. Yes, we have open data standards and open data sources, but what are the standards? Are we just saying this data is free? That means anybody can use it anyhow they want it? No. So all these issues about the insurance, the assurance, oversight, auditability, grievance also mechanisms. The farmer said my data was abused. What are the grievance channels to provide that? And lastly is now the use case itself. The use case has to be designed for scale. Ensuring that it is not just stuck in pilot. So we have all these solutions sometimes that they end up stuck in pilot and there was no scale plan, there was no scale strategy. So moving from just defining policy to defining the standards and interoperability, looking at the data governance, bringing in the private sector to ensure that there are right incentives, and then the use case that is designed for scale to support and address the solutions that we aim it to. That's how we're usually approaching it, Sebastian. Thanks.
Thanks, Brenda. If I can just jump in and swiftly follow on, I think that was super comprehensive. As we're thinking about it from Rockefeller Foundation, I mean, we're a relatively small player in the greater scheme of things, but we do have the advantage of being a private philanthropy, so we're a bit more flexible perhaps than some of the official agencies, whether they're national or state governments or international organizations such as IFAD. We're very focused on trying to figure out this nexus in, let's say, the highest risk, highest fragility, or rapidly increasingly fragile environments. There's often a rather perverse relationship between where funders are comfortable going because they want to deliver results to their stakeholders, particularly public funders want to satisfy their voters that that money is being used productively, and therefore they tend to migrate often towards more stable and predictable environments rather than the high risk, high fragility environments. So we want to demonstrate in high risk, high fragility environments that we can really move the needle on this nexus. So the state of fragility and the state of increasing risk and so on is one of the factors that we're looking at. But I strongly agree then that we need to also have willing partners on the ground. There's no point trying to push these data rocks up hills if you don't have willing and somewhat capable, at least, participants in the local ecosystems that you can work with. But often, again, in the high fragility, high risk environments, the state capabilities as well as activities from the private sector side are somewhat diminished. So one has to then and Brenda, you got at this. I mean, have the appetite to build capabilities and build capacities, and not just work in places where that's already in place, as part of moving forward. And the AI space itself is so rapidly changing that one then needs to also have confidence that the local organizations are not only interested in and willing to strengthen, but also that they have the ability to manage adaptively and be agile in how they execute the projects and initiatives. And then I think also I would say, and I think I'm echoing what previous speakers have said, it's a whole of government approach on the public sector side, because many different government functions and ministries and departments and so on need to be involved in these kinds of activities if we really want to strengthen the ecosystem. So again, the quality of leadership and the ability of leaders at senior levels in the government to force cross-government and whole-of-government approaches is going to be important. And then I think, I don't want to repeat everything Brenda said, but I will come to the last point that you made, Brenda, which I think is absolutely critical as well. And that is that we shouldn't be designing these pilot projects just to test hypotheses. We need to be designing them to be delivered at scale. And from a catalytic foundation like Rockefeller, we, as I said before, we have small budgets, so we can only, do a small handful of pilots at this point in time. But we want to work with partners who want to see that scaling happen. So in one case, for example, we're having discussions with the African Development Bank and the World Bank and so on about, what's their interest to then potentially crowd in around, and they can be part of, let's say, the scaling framework along with the national government and private sector organizations. So we don't want to do anything alone. We believe that, the mantra of "it takes a village" is extremely important in this applied AI setting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you very much, Simon, for sharing your perspective here. So, Simon, you just alluded to the need, I guess, to scale up from pilots towards something bigger, like structural changes in the system. Maybe is this something, Rao, that you could respond to how you see this scaling? So, from the project that you do with smallholder farmers, with incorporating all these different stakeholders. So to scale this up, so what is, from your point of view, what are the biggest challenges to do so, and what are the necessary steps?
One thing is to address these issues. We formed an expert group of multi-stakeholder expert group to guide the policy and governance. This is one thing which we have formed at the state level, Telangana state level, involving ministries like electronics and communication, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Rural Development, Ministry of Animal Husbandry, Ministry of Fisheries, universities, and experts from AI industry and all that. So we formed an expert group. So how to guide this? This is one. Then number two, when we are talking of scaling, so it should be the problems what we identify, the challenges what we identify should be pressing. Say, for instance, in Telangana, we have a huge problem of excessive use of fertilizers. We have a problem of labor scarcity. So demand-driven use cases, validated, tested, piloted, involving the stakeholders, involving the Department of Agriculture, involving the government, involving the academia and research, have played a very important role in scaling up these technologies. Why? Because while doing this, we have also learned that the capacities of the stakeholders have been enhanced. And another important thing what we noticed is this development of data ecosystem is a continuum. It is not one day affair. So building data sets specific to use cases have been the key for the success of a particular use case in upscaling. So let us not look at the entire data ecosystem, but use case wise, building the data sets has been the key. This is another aspect what we have noticed. And local public digital public infrastructure, unless the government plays an important role here, unless that is built, I think we have a challenge here to take these technologies to the field level. So to summarize, identifying the problem, say what you call developing the use case solution, then testing it, validating it in the farmers' fields, creating a success story, involving the stakeholders, and building the risk component also into it, have been important in upscaling these AI solutions in small and marginal farmers' fields. Of course, enhancing the capacities of Department of Agriculture staff, enhancing the capacities of the farmers, enhancing the capacities of even startups, because most of the startups what we have today, 95% of them are handled by IT people, not the agriculture graduates. So co-innovation, mentoring them in fine-tuning the solutions have been key, so what you call to develop relevant use cases which can be successful in small and marginal farmers' fields.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, what I gather from the comments from the three of you is that it is always relevant, obviously, to bring together people and technology. So there is a certain challenge in co-creation and co-innovation, to set up tools and frameworks to do so. And then also there is a certain challenge in bringing together different sorts of technology, especially when it comes to some sort of integration in some sort of DPI, digital public infrastructure. So I would like to ask the three of you basically, rather briefly, because we only have 9 minutes left, unfortunately. So what is your perspective on interoperability? There seems to be a common understanding that that's key to any sort of future AI services, digital services, and digital agriculture. But here again, so what are the challenges here, and what are potential avenues to come towards interoperability on the technical or maybe governance, from a technical or governance perspective? Brenda, may I start with you?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sebastian. I think from when we talk about interoperability, there are several actors that are coming together, several systems. I think having that shared purpose, I think it's important, because I've seen this being in countries where you're talking about interoperability. And sometimes you're also having challenges of understanding, are we talking about interoperability, we're talking about integration, which are two different things altogether, right? We're not asking integration. The moment you start integration, everybody wants to hold on to the system. They say, why do I have to bring this? What you're talking about interoperability is the same way we do in human sense. We need to speak to one another, understand the same language, and we're able to bring in this data perspective. So from the systems perspective, I think that's something that we need to look at it. From the human side, I think also we need to understand that as much as we call this artificial intelligence, it's not artificial, right? We are bringing in human perspectives, or bringing in the elements of curated data that has been vetted, and it has been understood that is going to support smallholder farmers to especially access to information extension. So all this combined with other synthetic data is coming together, right, in this augmented system. So it's always to understand a human perspective, that we're not just bringing in data out of nowhere and bringing it into a system to support farmers to produce better. It's actually data-driven, that is human-centered. And lastly is about the open collaboration that needs to happen. I think I cannot emphasize that a lot. They are partners that needs to be on the table, private sector, farmers themselves, cooperatives, financial institutions, so that when you co-create, it's actually a co-creation. It's open co-creation from the start. It's not co-creation at the middle or at the last bit of the solution. So that's something that we'll be emphasizing on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Simon, do you want to directly follow up on that?
Sure. So I think I would agree with pretty much everything Brenda has said. Let me try and add a few points. I think in terms of the challenges, just really pulling out, there are multiple different types of data that we need to have to be able to be exchanged. And I fully agree with you, Brenda. I don't think this is about integration into one big data warehouse or big organization. It's about having, and this is where I think the standards piece that you're working on, Sebastian, is so important. It's having a mechanism that enables us to pull data from these diverse different sets into AIs and run machine learning or run chatbots and so on, that then produce the results that users need in a usable form. And that's quite complicated, and not only not without the data itself formulated challenges, which can be solved by standards, but also the willingness and the incentives for organizations to share data. And I think, Brenda, you articulated this earlier on. How do we incentivize the private sector to, especially, for example, import companies or food companies that see that data that they have on what farmers are producing and using in terms of inputs, or what they're sourcing from farmers and where they're sourcing it as part of their competitive advantage positioning. They want to protect that data. They don't want to share that data. So how do we get not only the standards in place, but also the incentives in place to allow for that interoperability to effectively function? I think that's a key issue, and that's not only a private sector issue, by the way. It's also an issue within international organizations. I mean, we're trying to work at the nexus between the humanitarian sector and the development sector and climate adaptation. These are organizations that are typically not used to working with each other, and they're not incentivized to work with each other either. They're incentivized and financed typically to stay in their lanes. So again, trying to incentivize more collaboration for the benefit of those organizations and individuals on the ground who really need the benefit of these AI systems is going to be key. And I think part of the avenue for that has to be, and this, Vachal, I echo what you were saying around the multi-stakeholder piece of this. This is not, again, going to happen just because government, with all its best intentions and best capabilities, is driving all the solutions from the public sector side. You need to bring in the farmers' organizations, you need to bring in the representatives of business, and so on, in order to then problem solve and figure out how to overcome these challenges. But I think the work on standard is as much as the technology piece, part of the unlock for this. But it requires then a lot of things we already talked about in terms of good governance and transparency and other ethical principles and so on, underpinning that multi-stakeholder engagement. And then finally, I would say those multi-stakeholder engagements don't happen automatically. They happen not just because of good leadership, not just because of the standards, not just because of application of principles and incentives, but also because there's a capable backbone. And that's something I think as we advance our pilots, we have to figure out what is that backbone organization that actually is going to hold everybody else together. Otherwise, the risk is you do nice pilots, but it doesn't scale, it doesn't have sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Rao, do you have like a 1-minute perspective on maybe the relation, well, the meaning, the importance of technical interoperability, maybe directly in connection to the scaling aspect that Simon mentioned in his last sentence? You're muted.
Okay. Farmers' engagement is key here because farmer-centric digital literacy programs and community data cooperatives and say what you call harmonized standards. I think these are some of the issues which we have noticed will help in looking at a collaborative agri-data commons like approach, like linking academia, industry, and government for equitable access. So there are several issues, but I think building starting from the ground level, that is farmers' data, that is the key. A farmers registry, farm registry, then say what we call the use case centric solutions. So these are some of the things.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you, Brenda, Simon, Rao, for this rich and thoughtful discussion. And thank you to Magan Naidoo for the keynote and Dr. Kim for opening the session. Today's dialogue underscored that AI can be a powerful ally for global food security. However, only through collaboration, data governance, and shared standards that ensure fairness and impact at scale. We are happy to collaborate with WFP, IFAD, ITU, and FAO on the Global Initiative on AI for Food Systems. This global initiative was launched during the AI for Good Global Summit this year in July. I would like to invite you all to join us on this journey. On behalf of ITU and the AI for Good team, thanks to Polina and to Mulele, I would like to thank all of you in the audience for joining us and contributing our insights.
I think we lost him.
Thank you for participating in today's AI for Good session. We hope you've learnt something new, innovative, and engaging in today's event. We now encourage you to continue the conversation on the live video wall in the neural network. Here you can ask questions, like and comment, share links, complete the poll, connect with interesting profiles, or speak one-on-one using the chat and video function. We invite you to explore the lobby, try the smart matching quiz, visit the virtual exhibits, poster boards, the e-shop, and build your personalized AI for Good program. Let's shape the future of AI for good.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Naidu. Nice
Thank you
listening
all.
to you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you. Bye.